It was one of those calm Saturday mornings where everything felt just right. The sun peeked through the blinds, birds chirped outside, and the smell of coffee filled the kitchen. I was sitting at the table, enjoying my first sip, when I noticed movement through the front window. A man and a woman were walking up my driveway. They wore matching polo shirts with a generic-looking logo embroidered on the chest. The logo was blurry from where I sat, and it didn't look like anything I'd ever seen in the neighborhood. Both of them carried clipboards, their steps deliberate and confident, as though they had every right to be there. When I opened the door, the man introduced himself in a brisk, business-like tone. "Good morning. We're from the Neighborhood Compliance Committee. We're here for your scheduled inspection." His partner nodded, adding, "We've noticed several potential violations that need to be addressed immediately." I frowned, instantly skeptical. Scheduled inspection? We don't have a homeowners association here. I'd lived in this neighborhood for 7 years, and not once had anyone mentioned anything about an HOA. The man's forced smile didn't falter. "Oh, we're newly appointed. There's been a recent restructuring. We're authorized to check your property for compliance." Something about the way he said authorized made my skin crawl. I asked to see their ID, and they both hesitated. The woman shifted uncomfortably, glancing at the man before replying, "We don't carry IDs, but our shirts should be enough proof." That was the moment alarm bells went off in my head. Their shirts looked cheap, the kind you could have made at a print shop in under an hour. I told them politely but firmly that they were mistaken and they needed to leave. The man's smile faded just slightly, replaced with a thin-lipped expression that felt more like a warning than a reaction. "We'll be back," he said, his tone low and measured. They turned and walked slowly down the driveway, their heads swiveling to look back at my house more than once. I stood there at the door, watching them disappear around the corner, a strange weight settling in my chest. Something about their presence lingered in the air, like the static before a storm. I didn't know it at the time, but that wouldn't be the last I saw of the so-called Neighborhood Compliance Committee. And the next time, they wouldn't bother knocking. The afternoon was warm and quiet, the kind of day where nothing seemed urgent. I had stepped outside to grab the mail, chatting briefly with my neighbor about weekend plans, completely unaware of what was happening inside my own home. My 12-year-old son, Ethan, was in the living room watching TV, his sneakers kicked off, a half-finished sandwich on the coffee table. According to Ethan, the first sound that caught his attention was the faint rattle of the back door handle. At first, he thought it was me coming in from the yard, but when the door didn't open, there was a pause followed by the low murmur of voices. Curiosity made him peek toward the kitchen, and that's when he saw them. The same man and woman from earlier were standing in our backyard, their heads turning as they scanned the windows. The man tested the door again, then tilted his head upward. His gaze locked onto the kitchen window, which I had left cracked, open to let in the breeze. Ethan froze, his breath catching in his throat. He watched the man approach the window, pulling himself up with practiced ease. In one smooth movement, the stranger swung a leg over and slid into the kitchen, his sneakers landing softly on the tile. The woman stayed outside, peering in as if keeping watch. Ethan's heart pounded in his ears, but somewhere in the rush of fear, he remembered the safety talk we'd had just a few months ago. I had shown him the small silver keypad mounted near the fridge, the panic button that would alert the police instantly. It was meant for emergencies, and at that moment, nothing felt more urgent. He moved quickly but quietly, his bare feet barely making a sound on the floor. The man was distracted, scanning the counters and glancing toward the hallway. Ethan's fingers trembled as he pressed the button. The sound that followed was deafening, a shrill, blaring alarm that seemed to shake the air itself. The intruder jumped, swearing under his breath, While the woman outside jerked backward in surprise, Ethan didn't wait to see what happened next. He sprinted to the laundry room, ducking behind the dryer, his phone clutched tightly in his hands. As he dialed 911, his voice was barely a whisper as he told the dispatcher there was a man in the house. The adrenaline kept him still, but every second felt like an hour as the siren wailed through the walls. The alarm shriek was so loud it seemed to vibrate through every wall, bouncing off the hardwood floors and rattling the picture frames. Outside, the sound spilled into the neighborhood, drawing the attention of anyone within earshot. Inside, the man who had climbed through the kitchen window jerked around wildly, his eyes darting toward the back door. He knocked over a chair. In his rush, the wooden legs scraping hard against the floor. The fruit bowl on the counter went tumbling, apples rolling across the tile as he muttered curses under his breath. Ethan stayed crouched in the laundry room, clutching his phone like a lifeline. The 911 dispatcher's calm voice guided him through. His panic, asking for the address and any details he could give. "He's in the kitchen. He's looking for a way out," Ethan whispered, his voice trembling. "There's a woman outside, too. I think she's watching." Through the crack of the laundry room door, Ethan could see flashes of movement. The man's breathing was quick and shallow as he darted from one exit to another, only to find them locked. Then, faintly at first, came the sound of sirens in the distance. The rising wail of the police vehicles grew louder, closer, and the man's panic seemed to spike. He ran to the back door and yanked it open, bolting into the yard. "Bats." When I arrived back at the house, mail still in my hand, just in time to see flashing red and blue lights flooding the street. 2 squad cars screeched to a halt in front of our driveway, tires squealing. Officers jumped out, one shouting commands while another sprinted toward the backyard. The woman who had been standing watch tried to slip away toward the alley, but an officer intercepted her before she could take more than a few steps. Meanwhile, the man didn't get far. As he made a desperate dash toward the fence, one of the officers tackled him to the ground, the impact knocking the wind out of him. His cheap polo shirt bunched up around his neck as his hands were yanked behind his back and cuffed. From my spot at the front, I caught sight of Ethan peeking out from the laundry room, his face pale but determined. Even in the chaos, the flashing lights, the shouts, the blurring alarm still wailing, he had done exactly what he needed to do. And because of that, the intruders weren't going anywhere but into the back of a police car. In the hours that followed, the chaos slowly unraveled into clarity. The police stayed for over an hour, taking statements from me, Ethan, and even a few neighbors who had seen the pair earlier in the day. The officers explained that the man and woman were part of a roaming scam operation. They had been targeting neighborhoods without official homeowners associations, posing as compliance officers to gain entry into houses. Their routine was simple but effective. They would invent a reason to inspect a property, hoping to get invited inside, and once there, they'd scope out valuables or personal documents. If no one let them in, they weren't above sneaking in through a window or an unlocked door. When I told the officers that I'd confronted them earlier and sent them away, one of them nodded knowingly. "You're not the first," he said. "In fact, you might have stopped them from getting inside the first time. They probably came back because they thought your house looked like an easy target." That thought sent a cold shiver down my spine. The woman's uniform shirt was lying rumpled in an evidence bag, the printed logo nothing more than a cheap iron-on patch. Their clipboards contained random papers with made-up violation lists, things like unapproved exterior paint and illegal plant growth, all designed to sound official but completely meaningless. Ethan sat next to me on the couch as I signed the last page of my statement. One of the officers crouched down in front of him, speaking with genuine warmth. "Kid, you did exactly the right thing." Hitting that panic button probably saved your home and maybe even your life. Ethan managed a small smile, but I could tell the day's events were still settling heavily on him. As the police cars finally pulled away, the street returned to its usual quiet, though it felt different now, less safe, more fragile. Neighbors came by to check on us, shaking their heads in disbelief when they learned the intruders weren't even from a real HOA. A few admitted they'd nearly fallen for similar tricks in the past. That night, I double-checked every window and door before bed, my mind replaying the sound of that alarm over and over. I realized just how quickly a normal day could twist into something dangerous. From that point forward, I made sure everyone in the house knew one thing for certain. There was no HOA here, and if anyone claimed otherwise, they wouldn't be getting a second chance to prove it.